Hi friends, welcome to my channel, Yaya's Heart. Today is August 27th, and I'll be bringing you messages from the departed. I'll be doing 2 readings today, but beforehand, I will go through some visions that I had in my preparatory meditation. These visions are to help some of you determine who might be coming through for you today. So we'll start there. So the first vision I had was very simple. It was just a puppy, and it was actually more the word or the idea of a puppy than an actual picture of a puppy. So obviously not very specific, so it may have some significance for some of you and it may not. The next vision that I had was of a small commercial fishing type boat. It appeared to be coming into a channel, possibly somewhere like Maine, in the northeast of the U.S., or perhaps up on that side of Canada, somewhere in those types of areas. So if some of you had a relative who was a fisherman, who worked on a commercial fishing boat, or perhaps owned a commercial fishing boat, or had something to do with fishing, or perhaps even someone who lived in that area where there was a lot of prevalence of fishing in the area, someplace like Gloucester, Maine, or someplace like that where fishing is perhaps the predominant industry and the way of life there, so that could be an indication. And then I felt a sharp pain in my 4th knuckle of my right hand, which is indicative of a boxer's fracture. So if some of you have a loved one who was perhaps a boxer, or into some sort of martial arts, or perhaps someone who frequently got into fights, or someone who perhaps that contributed to their passing on, being in some sort of a hand-to-hand combat fight where they perhaps broke this bone here. This is a typical bone that gets broken when someone punches someone else. So that could be what that is indicating. I also saw, the next thing I saw was a bull. Not an actual bull, but more of a picture of a bull, or a representation, almost like a tarot card with a bull on it. But I took that to mean that possibly a Taurus. So if there was a loved one who was a Taurus, that could be someone who might be coming through. If there was a loved one who was perhaps very bullheaded, very stubborn, that could be something as well. If there was a loved one who perhaps raised cattle and had some prized bulls or something along those lines, that could also be an indication there. And then I smelled a very, very sweet, soapy smell. So it could be that you may have had a departed loved one who used a particular fragrance, or used a particular soap or lotion or something like that. And so you always had this very sweet, soapy smell that you smelled whenever they were around. And that is actually a pretty typical sign that your loved one is around. So since I smelled that smell, it's a good indication that whoever this individual is here with me. Then I saw, and actually I saw this vision several times through the meditation, but I didn't write it down until toward the end because it was very static. It wasn't something that was very outstanding, so it really didn't, I wasn't sure if it was something that I needed to pay attention to, but it kept reoccurring. So what this was it was a vision of a woman who was wearing a very a dark dress that was very ornate, is not the word that I want, but it was very stately. Her dress was very stately. It had a bustle perhaps, or some sort of a big crinoline or something underneath it, so that the bottom part of it, the skirt poofed out. It was indicative of a particular time period in history that the wealthy may have worn. This woman may have been, the dark color gave me just the distinct impression that she was perhaps a widow of a large estate. She had, her hair was up in kind of a bun, and it was sort of full on the bottom, so not pulled tight, but fuller, and then with sort of a bun or a French knot or something on the top of her hair. Very stately woman. And I had the impression of either an entryway with a staircase behind her sometimes when I saw it, and other times it was sort of a clearing in a forest glen. But she stood apart. She was the only very clear part of the vision, and the rest behind her was sort of enshadowed or unclear. And as I thought about this vision, it occurred to me that this may be a portrait that hung in someone's home. So this, again, I had a very distinct feeling that this may have been a portrait, and a portrait perhaps of someone's ancestor. And it may have been a very large portrait too. Just the feeling of presence that I got from this. It was almost kind of gloomy, almost sort of foreboding, but it was just very stately and solid and dark. But several times I saw this woman standing there. So if that means anything to any of you, this may have been, the woman may have been the departed, but I almost feel it's more likely that this was a portrait, a painting that was in the home or associated somehow with your departed loved one. Then I saw, the next vision I saw was a middle-aged, probably in her late 30s to early 40s, blonde or strawberry blonde-haired woman who was, she had very sort of creamy colored skin, and she was wearing kind of a party dress that was sort of off the shoulder, and she was very jovial, very playful, very flirty, and she seemed to be at a party, and she was surrounded by several men who were enjoying her company. They were laughing together, and they all had on suits, but not a suit that you would wear to work. It was more of a suit that you would wear to a party. So there was almost an air of the I'm not good with history, but like somewhere between the 20s and 40s, I guess, kind of just a very ruffly sort of a dress that she had on, and the men had on almost sort of glittery or metallic-y almost looking suits, almost as though they were sort of a dinner jacket kind of a suit. Anyway, and this appeared to be going on at some sort of a party, a cocktail party of sorts. So if you had a relative, a woman who was very bubbly and full of life and loved to party and loved to attention from men, but she was also a very sweet individual. So if that rings a bell for you, that may be someone who's coming through. And then the last vision that I had was a small, about Chihuahua-sized dog that was apparently hairless. So I don't know if this was a Mexican hairless dog, but it was a light tan-colored, small, hairless dog with a hot pink, either a collar, and I wrote down collar because that's what made the most sense, but what I actually saw was this dog had a boa around its neck, a feather boa. So I don't know if there is something literal to do with this dog and a hot pink boa, or if perhaps there was something to do with a boa constrictor, a snake that someone had as a pet, which may be the reason that the dog was in this, and it was hairless because the snake would be hairless. Stick with me here for just a minute. The dog may have been in the vision, not because that the dog had anything to do with it, but just maybe to indicate that there was a snake that was a pet. So if you had a loved one who had a snake that was a pet, and of course a snake would be hairless, just like the dog was hairless, and the boa may have indicated that the actual pet was a snake. So I have a strong feeling that this may have been some vision that had to do with a relative who owned or worked with or loved snakes. I'm not sure what the hot pink has to do with anything. It may have just been an attention grabber. But if any of that makes any sense to you, that could be an indication of who might be coming through for you. So that was the visions that I had. So let's get on to the groups. The first group that we are going to have is this group, and this is, I believe, an Ocean Jasper Freeform. I wish that the lighting was better because this is an absolutely beautiful stone, but it's difficult to show in this lighting. So Ocean Jasper Freeform for group 1, and then group 2 is an Amethyst Freeform, and this Amethyst has a little window here, a little vug that forms a little window. It's actually a chevron Amethyst Freeform. So that's group 2. Group 2 is a chevron Amethyst Freeform. So Ocean Jasper, Amethyst, group 1 and group 2. So take some time to tune in and decide which one of these groups calls to you. If you need to pause the video, that's fine. Once you've decided which group you'd like to listen to, the groups will be linked below in the description with the timestamp. So simply click on the timestamp that corresponds to your reading and it will take you directly to the reading. You're always welcome to listen to both readings if you prefer. So I will see you at your reading. Hi Group 1, this is your reading, the Ocean Jasper Freeform. The first message that we want to get for this reading is a message to give you an idea of who is coming through for you. And I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. Typically this card that I draw ahead of time is an oracle card that we save for the end of the reading. However, recently I got a new deck that is an archetypes deck. So I'm going to use this card to begin the inquiry into who might be coming through for you. And then we will probably add some more to it to get some more clarity for us. So the first message that we'd like to get, Spirit, is who is coming through for Group 1. And the card that we got is Artist. Artist. And it says light attributes are expressing a dimension of life that is just beyond the 5 senses, inspiring others to see life symbolically. And the shadow attributes say taking talent as an excuse to mistreat others, posing as a starving artist to elicit pity. So this individual who's coming through for you, I would say they probably were, in the traditional sense, an artist. Whether that means painting portraits, and of course in the visions ahead of time we saw what I believe to be a portrait of the lady, so that may connect there. That may have been what that message was about. Now that I look at this, that may have been a painting that your loved one painted. So I believe that this individual is an artist. Again, they could have been someone who painted, someone who danced, someone who wrote songs, any type of creative artist, perhaps an actor, could be who is coming through for you. The shadow attributes speak of using their using their talents to mistreat others. I don't feel as though that really comes into play here for your loved one, although it could, I suppose. If there was someone, a loved one, that always held themselves kind of above everyone else because they did something unique, is definitely a possibility as well. So let's get some additional archetype cards here to maybe narrow down or perhaps expand who might be coming through for some of you. So Spirit, could we please have some messages as to who is coming through for group 1, please? Okay, so we got Detective. Great powers of observation and intuition. Desire to seek out the truth. So with the Artist and the Detective, this individual likely would have been someone who saw things in the world differently. They would be someone who could look at something very common and see something uncommon in it. So I believe that is who your loved one was when they were here. They were someone who could, they saw sides of things that other people didn't see. They went through life just marveling and wondering at everything that they saw. And then they could take that vision that they had, that uncommon vision, and create something that was tangible and material that others could enjoy. They could translate their vision that was unique, that other people probably didn't see, into a mode that others could understand what they saw in this common thing. They could bring to life the vision that they had of something that other people just passed by every day. So that's who's coming through for you. Someone who saw the world differently and could translate that to other people. But not so much in a spoken way, although it could be someone who's a writer as well, who could translate what they saw in the world into stories. But that's who's coming through for you. So, excuse me. Spirit, may we get some messages, please, to tell us what was the relationship between group 1 and their loved one. I'm trying to decide what deck I need to use. I think this one. So, Spirit, what was the relationship between group 1 and their departed loved one? Okay. So we got the 9 of Earth and we got the Messenger of Earth. Your relationship with this individual was it was almost kind of an unspoken bond. It was the two of you spent time together doing physical things, creating. You didn't talk a lot together, although you could speak to each other, but you just didn't feel like there was a need for a lot of talk when you were with this individual. You probably spent a lot of time out in nature together, or you spent a lot of time also creating. You have had maybe a budding artist yourself, and you may have looked up to this individual as a mentor. But I not just someone that you admired and wanted to be taught by, but and there was that, certainly, but I get the feeling that there was just a very, very strong, unbreakable connection. This was someone, I get the picture of someone who's considerably older than you, perhaps a grandparent, but who always treated you as an equal, who always treated you as someone with just magical abilities and potential, and they never talked down to you, they never belittled you, they always had time for you, and they always encouraged you to be yourself. They encouraged you to be unique and to do whatever you believed was beautiful and right. And so that's the relationship that you had with this individual. And so Spirit, and on the bottom of the deck, we got the 10 of air. So you were very, very wounded when they left. You were really, really deeply, deeply hurt when they left. Wow, tremendously. Sorry, I'm very sorry about that. So what is it that you would like to know from your departed? What is your question or query, or what would you like to know from them? What do you want to know? Spirit, what does Group 1 want to know from their departed loved one? What is their question? Okay, we got the 10 of Pentacles, the 6 of Pentacles, and the Page of Cups. So mostly you want to know that they're happy. You just desperately want to know that they're in a good place and they're happy. And you want them to know that you miss them terribly, and that you feel alone without them. But that the memory of them comforts you a great deal. So mostly you want them to know. You want to know that they're in a good place, and you also want them to know how much you miss them. So your question to them is, do they know that? And are they in a good place? And so, Spirit, what is the departed's reply to their loved one in Group 1? So the departed's reply is that they are extremely, extremely happy. They have everything that they could possibly want. They look back on their life and they were very fulfilled. They look back on the life that they had together with you. And that was something that when they went over to the other side, they could look back on that, and it filled them with such a feeling of joy that they needed nothing more. They were so their life was so full. The life that they had with you was so full and so complete and so nourishing and so very, very rewarding to them. And rewarding is not the word that I want. They were just filled up. They were filled up by the relationship and the time that they spent with you, that they couldn't ever need anything more. And so right now they are in a place that is, they feel so much love where they are now. And looking back to their life that they had with you, they know that the love that they are feeling now in large part has to do with the love that they shared with you when they were here. So thank you for those messages, Spirit. And can we please have any messages that the departed would like to know, would like their loved one to know? What would the loved one, the departed loved one of Group 1, like their loved one here to know? What do they want them to know? Okay, so we got the Knight of Pentacles, got the Ace of Swords, the Six of Cups, the Hierophant, and the Judgment card. So what your loved one wants you to know is that the love and the connection that they had when they were here on earth taught them and guided them through their life. It gave them clarity, and it guided them. It gave them a path through their life that they had here on earth that led them through any obstacles that cropped up in their life. Anytime they came up against something unknown or something difficult, it was the connection that they had to their loved ones, this very solid earthly connection that they had to the love in their life that guided them through any obstacles that they may have come up against. And because they had that love and that connection in their life, when they passed on, they passed into a realm that many would consider heaven. I have a little bit different view of heaven. I believe that heaven is, I believe when we pass on, we have a life review, and we have to, or we go through, we experience all of the energy that we created while we were here on earth. And not only the energy that we created with ourselves and those immediately in our presence, but all of the ripples of that energy that move out to anyone that came in contact with those that we influenced. And so if we influence someone positively, they move on and they influence someone else positively, and they move on and they influence someone else positively, and it ripples out infinitely. Likewise, if we influence someone negatively, they may go on to influence someone else negatively. They may develop a negative mindset, which may perpetuate as well. So when we go to the other side, I believe that we genuinely feel every bit of energy that we generated while we're here on this earth. And so when we generate positive energy that ripples through others, and particularly the energy of love, when we go to the other side, that's the energy that we experience predominantly through our life review. And so because this energy, and we don't just experience it thinking about it or understanding it or seeing it, we experience the actual emotions that we passed to others and they passed on. We experience all of that emotion. And so by living their life in this place where they were connected, strongly connected to their loved ones, and shown love throughout their life, and learned from that's the way the branches reach out. Here you see the branches are reaching out with that love. Your loved one learned that through their lifetime, and because of that understanding that was the way to live their life, and that was the way that they lived their life, now they have come into the next realm, knowing the absolute bliss of all the joy that they provided to all of these other people, all of the bliss that radiated out, all of the love that radiated out from them is now coming back to them. Now they get to experience all of that love. So they want you to know that is where they are, so that you can be at peace with regard to where they are and how they are. But also they want you to know this because they want this to be the Hierophant. They want this to be a lesson, a teacher for you as well, as you move through your life, understanding that passing on love and kindness and compassion is going to come back to you. That's why they say that what you give comes back tenfold to you, because that may not happen here, but in the next lifetime or in the next realm, when we pass on, it definitely does come back, and it's probably vastly more than tenfold. So they want you to know that they want you to learn that lesson, and they also want you to know that you were very instrumental in the love that they're feeling now. They were able to give you that love, and you gave that love back to them, and because of that, both of you were able to expand that love out to others, and it rippled out from there. So they really want to thank you, and they want you to know and to believe and to understand that because of the love that you had for each other, they are now in a place where this love is magnified tremendously, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place for them. I have these numerology cards that are new to me, and I felt compelled to use them. So I believe that these are supposed to be for a final message. So I'm not sure what I'm going to get from this, but we're going to try this. So Spirit, could you please give some final messages for group 1 with regard to their reading today? Okay. Okay, so your final messages are love and manifestation. So your departed loved one is reiterating that through love you will be able to manifest whatever you want. So they just are reminding you that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that by loving and feeling loved, you can basically create whatever it is that you want in this lifetime. So they want you to have that. They want you to have everything that you want in this lifetime, and the way to do that is through love. So beautiful message there. I hope that this has brought you some just love. Honestly, I hope that you can feel the love of your departed loved one, because I can feel it. And I can just feel them smiling right now. So thank you for joining me for this reading. Your loved one wants you to thank you as well. And I am grateful that I could be a part of this for you and your departed loved one. And I hope that you'll come back soon. In the meantime, I wish you blessings. Bye-bye. Hi, Group 2. This is your reading, the Amethyst Freeform. The first query that we have for this reading is, who is your loved one who's coming through? And typically, I pull an oracle card ahead of time, which is our final message. But today I'm doing things a little bit differently. I have a new deck that is an archetype deck. So I've pulled these cards intuitively ahead of time. And this is going to give us our first indication of who might be coming through for you. So Spirit, who is coming through for Group 2? Okay, Group 2, we got the Hermit. Hermit for you with regard to archetypes. And it says, light attributes seeks solitude to focus intently on inner life, serves personal creativity. And the shadow attributes are withdraws from society out of fear or negative judgment of others, refusing to help those in need. So it could be that your loved one, either way, your loved one is someone who's very solitary. This departed is someone who kept to themselves a lot. I'm getting a picture of someone who is just a brilliant individual for some of you. Someone who gets lost in their thoughts. They go down a rabbit hole and start, they just have fantastic things going on in their head, trying to figure out puzzles, trying to figure out riddles and problems. And this person may be someone who completely lost track of all time when they get started thinking about something, pondering about something. They'd forget where they were. They might forget, they certainly would forget to eat from time to time. I'm getting a picture of, at least for some of you, someone who just really got lost in their thoughts. They may not have even actively sought out isolation or solitude. They may actually have just sort of gone inward right in the middle of everything. So this might be someone who at a family gathering, people would be talking and laughing and just having a great conversation, and someone would ask this individual something or try and bring them into the conversation, and they'd be like, huh, what? I'm sorry, were we talking? Kind of a thing. So that is our initial indication of who is possibly coming through for you. Also, this individual, the Hermit card, also brings forth possibility that for some of you, this is an individual who had a great deal of anxiety and had difficulty dealing with other people, and so they kept to themselves. They went in their room a lot. They were not out in the world very much, and likely they may have been sort of locked within their mind in a dark place. I mention this because in some cases that may be what caused them to leave this existence here, is being trapped in this solitary place in their mind, where there was a lot of anxiety. So that's a possibility for some of you as well. Spirit, could we have any additional messages as to who might be coming through for group 2? Could we have some additional information on who might be coming through for group 2, whether that be another individual or just another attribute of this particular departed? Some additional messages, please, or an additional message, perhaps. Okay. Okay, so we got, the next card that we got is the Goddess. The Goddess. And it says light attributes, the feminine expressed through wisdom, nature, life force, and sensuality. And the shadow attribute is exploitation of the female nature and form. So in conjunction with the Hermit, this individual, when I talked about some people who get lost in thought, this individual might be someone who was really, really attuned to knowing the inner workings of other people. That could be where the Goddess side comes in. That's a very divine feminine attribute, is understanding other people, understanding the nature of other people, the nature of a particular individual, in fact. So it could be that this person had the ability to read a room very quickly, the ability to know when someone else needed something. They may have been the kind of individual who didn't say much, kept to themselves a lot of the time, but they would surprise everyone by stepping up and knowing when someone needed attention or needed help, or knowing something. They may be the ones who were very quiet, but out of the blue would say, "Oh, you're pregnant, aren't you?" And everyone would be shocked because nobody would know it, and the person who would be shocked because they hadn't told anyone, or perhaps they didn't even know themselves. So this individual with this Goddess attribute could have been someone who just had a very strong inner knowing about others. But for the most part, they would have kept mostly to themselves, unless there was something. It was almost like a savant-ish kind of a characteristic about them. It would just be sort of an out of the blue, perhaps, that they would either blurt something out, or they would they just knew things that other people didn't see or didn't know. The other possibility is with the shadow attribute of this and the shadow attribute of the Hermit, if this was an individual who was locked away and had a great deal of anxiety, and dealt with their inner demons that way, it could be that part of that inner demon was the result of, whether in this lifetime or a previous lifetime, some sort of exploitation of being a woman. So that is a possibility of who this individual might have been too. So, not to get too explicit, but for some of you, this may have been a woman who had been abused, and which caused her to withdraw from life and eventually perhaps even end her life. So that's who this could have been. So again, this could have been someone who is very attuned, someone who is very mentally adept, someone who, most certainly someone who saw things that other people didn't see. Whether that was, with the goddess attribute, seeing things in other people, understanding other people, the nature of others, or just strictly with the hermit attribute, if it was more of a scientific type of knowing, or an understanding of the mechanisms of things. But this individual had that some sort of an esoteric knowing. They had visions, and not necessarily like visions that they saw things, but they understood things. They had a vision. They were a visionary. They could see things that other people couldn't. They could see the way things work together, how they fit together, when other people could not. But they weren't a very verbal individual. They didn't talk about this a lot. They didn't spend all their time explaining things to other people. They just knew these things. And there would be times when all of a sudden they would say something, or do something that just shocked everyone, because it showed an understanding that no one realized that they had. So that's who is coming through for you, group 2. And hopefully that resonates for you, at least in some way. So let's see, what deck do we need next? I'm thinking this little deck, which is a fun little deck. So Spirit, the next query that we have is, what is the relationship that group 2 had to this departed? What was the relationship that group 2 had with the departed? Okay, so wow, this is interesting. We got some heavy energy here. We got the Hanged Man, we got the Star, and we got the Hierophant. So, I feel as though from these cards that you may have been related to this individual, and you may have inherited similar traits. I feel like you may have had the same esoteric understanding of things, but it was just in your infancy for you. You were just learning how to understand what went on in your mind, and in your knowing. And you were actually working with this individual to try and understand better how to utilize this gift. And by working with them, I don't necessarily mean that you went to work and shared a cubicle, but you were one of the few people who could talk to this individual, because you understood, at least in small part, what it was, that the way that they saw things. Even if this was an individual who had, the dark side of what we talked about, even if this was an individual who had demons and who, was kind of withdrawn and not really a part of things, and perhaps suffering with some of their demons, they still had this incredible understanding of the nature of human beings, or understanding of the workings of things. And that may have been in a way that was so far outside of the norm of what most people understand that it may have ostracized them, because people thought they were a little crazy, or people just didn't know how to relate to them. They couldn't understand what they were talking about. they didn't have the same understanding of things, or they couldn't even begin to understand things the way that this individual did. But you did have the beginning of that understanding. You saw the potential in what this individual knew. And so the two of you had a connection because you actually were curious about what this individual could share with you. And when they talked about something, or when you asked them about something, they would try to kind of dumb things down, but you encouraged them to tell you the way that they saw it. And they were grateful that and they were surprised that you had some understanding of, and that you believed the way that they saw things. They just had a vision of things that was just beyond what most people would be able to comprehend. But you, even though you didn't have the understanding that they did yet, but you could see the potential, you could see the possibilities, you could see how it could be true, or it could be the truth. And so you were almost essentially apprenticing with this individual, but they didn't seek you out, and they probably weren't even all that thrilled about you questioning them all the time. Not because they resented it or didn't necessarily like it, but more just because, in the case of the person who gets lost in their thoughts, figuring out puzzles, they just didn't want to be interrupted or disturbed. And also the person who maybe was on the shadow side of the spectrum, it was hard for them to connect and communicate, and so they also didn't want to be disturbed, but in a different way. So that was kind of the relationship that you had with them. You had an understanding, you had a curiosity, you really wanted to learn more from them, but they may have been a little less than forthcoming some of the time, although they would take time with you when it suited them, basically. So that was what your relationship was with this individual. So Spirit, what is Group 2's question or query for their departed? What is their question or concern or query for the departed? Thank you for these messages, Spirit. What is the question that Group 2 has, or the query or concern that they have for their departed? Okay, so we got the King of Wands, we got the Four of Cups, and we got the Tower. I'm going to need a little bit more clarity on this. I'm not sure I understand what Spirit is telling me. Spirit, could I have some more clarification on this question, please? Okay, so we got the Seven of Wands. So you want to know I feel like you want to know what it was like for them. It's more than that, though. You understood that they felt like that they didn't have a connection. They were in a very, very different place than most everyone else, and that they were isolated because, again, they had this knowing that other people didn't understand. And you felt like they were, and you think they felt like they were constantly having to, how do I say this? You feel like they felt like they were constantly having to play the game. They were having to fit in, and act the way people wanted them to act. They felt like they had to mask their behaviors or their thoughts, that they couldn't share those because they got ridiculed, or they got just ignored, or people thought they were just off the wall. And so you felt as though they always felt that they were in a completely different place, like almost a different world, that they felt like they were alone in their own understanding of the world, and that they constantly were having to try and fit in. And your question is that what caused them not being able to fully express who they were? Was that what caused them to leave this world? In the case of some who are on the shadow side of this, obviously there could have been, a suicide or an addiction that led to perhaps an accidental death. But even in the case of those who didn't die, who died of essentially natural causes, you're wondering, did the stress and pressure of having to hide their true self, or feeling so disconnected from everyone else because no one else understood them, is that what led them to leave this world? And like I said, even if it was natural causes, you want to know if just the heartache or the stress or just the lack of human contact weakened their system somehow, or created some sort of a disease process or something that led them to leave this world. So that's what your question for them is. Your question for them is, was the disconnect that they had with the rest or the most of society what ultimately led them to no longer be here in some way? That's the question that you have for them. So, Spirit, what is the departed's reply, please? Thank you for these messages. What is the reply that the departed has for group 2? What is their reply? Wow. Okay, so we got 3 major arcana. We got the Death card, we got the Sun, and we got the Empress. So, and then we got the 5 of Spoons, which is the 5 of Swords. So, what they're saying is that no, they had to leave. Wow, this is a huge message. They had to leave in order to make space for what was coming in. Wow, I am kind of blown away by this message. The fact that they were so disconnected, and people didn't get it, didn't lead to them leaving this life. What happened, what led to them is, and they didn't know this when they were here, but they basically laid the groundwork for what was to come after them. The losses that they felt when they were here, and what they went through, being ostracized, being not feeling like they were a part of the bigger picture, had to happen in order for there to be the potential of future generations understanding the way they did. So, yeah. See, the Empress is all about bringing in new life. She's pregnant. And then in this card is the baby. So, their death made way for... I feel as though this factor of you beginning to understand and having the ability to understand some of what they understood, and to see the way they thought, and to understand the way that they thought and felt and understood things, in order for you to develop that further. Yeah, that's what this card is saying. In order for you to take the remaining 2 spoons and be able to use what you learned from them, they had to be out of the picture. So they're not talking about an earthly sense of why they died. Regardless of how they died, whether it was natural causes, whether it was self-imposed, regardless of how they died, they now know, since they've left, that the bigger picture was, in order for the esoteric type of knowing that they had before its time, that you also possess, they had to be out of the picture in order for you to move forward, because the type of knowing that you have comes about through having to figure things out yourself. So by them being here, they laid the groundwork. They gave you the confidence that you needed by teaching you some, but had they still been here, you would have relied too heavily on them to try and understand this without struggling through it yourself. And so it would have stagnated. So their answer to your question, which really isn't entirely an answer to your question, but it's what they need you to know, is that they had to leave. They had to be out of the picture in order for you to develop this gift the way it needed to be developed. It couldn't develop by someone teaching it to you. I don't know how exactly to express it, but the very nature of the gift itself is that it can't be taught. It has to be discovered. So they had to be out of the way in order for you to work to discover this on your own. They were here just to give you, to nurture this gift, because no one else would, because no one else understands it. So no one else, had it not been for this individual, no one else maybe would have even known that it existed, that you had this, that this possibility even existed, let alone that you had the capability to do this. So this individual was here so that you could have a springboard to furthering this gift, because this gift is something, this gift is something that the world's going to need. So huge message. Huge message. I've got goosebumps. Wow. So, thank you for that message, Spirit. That amazing message. So what is it? What else is there that Group 2's departed wants them to know? What does the departed want Group 2 to know? What does Group 2's departed loved one want them to know? Okay, so what your departed loved one wants you to know is that in order for this gift to fully develop, it has to be anchored in a material existence. And also it has to be nurtured by emotions. So, in other words, if you only nurture this gift by thinking about things and staying in your own head, which is an energetic form, an energetic realm, it will have no noticeable impact at all. So, in order for this gift to be fully realized, when we first started out, remember we had the hermit. This individual kept to themselves. They developed the mental capacity to understand things on a level that other people didn't understand. They thought about things a lot, but they didn't put that much into action. So what they want you to know is that in order for this gift to really be worth something and to really become what it needs to be, and this is a very important gift, very important, and in order for this gift to fully manifest, it must be anchored in the material, in this 3D earthly existence. So it can't just be thinking about things. It has to be actually doing and making and holding things. And also, it must be supported with high vibrational emotion, compassion, love, caring. So they want you to know that it's very, very important that you don't just stay in your head thinking about things. That's the way to start. That's the way to gain the confidence and the understanding. But once you get to that place of understanding, this gift needs action, and it needs compassion. It needs passion. So, you might end up being an activist who changes the world. You may be a scientist who changes the world. You might be a life coach who changes an individual who goes out and changes the world. You may be a parent or a grandparent who nurtures a young one and has an understanding about what their potential is and nurtures them in a way that no one else does or has. And you may have an understanding about how that development should be and can be different. And you might be the one to show this young person how to be different, how to change the world. But regardless, this gift is huge. This gift is, I can't express how big this gift that you have is, but only if it is anchored in high vibrational emotion and earthly action. Wow, I am just blown away at this moment by this reading. Thank you so much, loved one, for coming through with these messages. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is amazing. So, to get some final messages from your loved one, I'm going to try and use this. I have this numerology deck that I got recently. I used it for the first group and it came through all right. I'm not exactly sure that this is the deck that I'm supposed to use, but I'm going to try it. And if we don't get final messages, then I'll try a different deck. But Spirit, departed loved one, what final messages would you like to have for group 2, please? What final messages for group 2? I'm really feeling as though this is not the deck that I need right now. I think I need this one. So Spirit, what final messages would you like for group 2? What final messages for group 2, please? Any final messages, please, for group 2? You know what? I think I am supposed to use the numerology deck, but I need the book that came with it. And unfortunately, I put that box away. So hang on just one moment. I'm going to grab the book. Okay. Thank you. All right, let's try this again. Spirit, what final messages for group 2, please? There we go. That's what we needed. Okay, so the card that we got is Spiritual Career. Spiritual Career. Wow, that's interesting. Let's see what the book says to give us some more additional guidance on this. Spiritual Career. This card indicates an opportunity to embark upon a career in the mind-body-spirit arena. Are you kidding me now? We just talked about mind, body, spirit. Okay, so this emotional card also spirit. So the mind, here the esoteric thinking, the body taking action, and the spirit, the emotion, the love. Okay, cool. This could be a full or part-time venture. It's entirely up to you. You may already have the credentials to begin this work now, or you may require further study before you're ready to start. Whatever your situation, this card is a confirmation that you have genuine talents and abilities that need to be put to good use. Just what we've been talking about. You may decide to work as a clairvoyant, life coach, homeopath, or healer and see clients from your home, or try your hand at being a card reader, numerologist, or astrologer at your local Mind Body Spirit fair. You may choose to be a writer of inspirational books or blogs, or conduct workshops in the community. Regardless of what you do, and however big or small the scheme, you can turn it into a career with potential for success. In order to improve your current situation, you are being asked to adjust to and harmonize with the natural rhythm and cycles of your life, cycles that are leading you to embark upon a spiritual career. Only you can know when the time is right, but no matter what, you must believe you will succeed. Remove the limiting beliefs that are preventing you from moving forward. Release your anxieties and trust in the divine. When you focus on being of service rather than your worries, doubts, and fears, the universe will send you opportunities to serve. And the affirmation they give is, I serve the greater good, and I am given all that I need. So, there you go. That may be the way that you're going to bring this gift into the world, by being a light worker of some sort. So, amazing, amazing reading, Group 2. Thank you so much for coming for this reading, and I am honored to be a part of this reading with you. I hope that all of this comes to pass. If it does, look me up, because I want lessons from you. Thank you so much for being here with me. I have really enjoyed this reading, and I, as always, have really enjoyed spending time with you. So please do come back, and I will see you again soon.